So we had the first press interview, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz. Dana Bash, CNN. This was much anticipated, and it did not disappoint. This video has most of the interview in order because I think it's really important to see how this played out in order to appreciate how well Kamala Harris and Tim Walz did. They did break up the interview into segments, so I was putting commentary in between, which by the end of it will tie in everything that I felt. Now, one of the things I was a little bit bothered by that I'm going to let you know right off the bat was the tone of questions. Dana Bash seemed to come at Kamala and Tim from a very right-wing lens. A lot of the questions were based on MAGA talking points, and that bothered me. However, what it did accomplish for Kamala is it really showed the difference between her and Trump when they're in that kind of a contentious environment. And man, Kamala, she stayed strong. She stayed true to her integrity. Unwavering. There are a couple moments where you are going to see Kamala just hammering in on points that completely illustrate the difference between her and Donald Trump. Their leadership styles, the type of humanity that Kamala and Tim Walz bring to this job, humanity that Donald Trump is incapable of. She owns it and shows it to the viewer in no uncertain terms. Kamala just knocked this one out of the park. And compared to that Trump town hall, oh my God, it's just night and day. Let's watch her go to work.
The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade,
been a lot of
we have
fighting.
Had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and in an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. And
right?
I think people are ready to turn the page.
All that third world country nonsense.
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy.
She lays out the basics of her plan. Right here is where Dana shifts gears and cuts right into these right-wing talking points, one after the other. Watch how Kamala handles it.
You call it the opportunity economy.
I like it.
You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
We were dying.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis.
Bingo!
When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation.
We're leading the world right now.
You are right.
Look at the markets.
Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it.
Yeah.
Which is why my agenda...
We also know Kroger's been ripping us off, too.
For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging.
Thank you.
What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it.
You maintain Bidenomics is a success?
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America, what we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do.
There we go.
That's good work.
I
Dude,
want to get some clarity on
Let's
where
go.
you stand on some key policy issues.
let's go.
Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town
Dude,
hall, you said
I'm not
you
a huge
asked,
fan of
"Would you
fracking.
commit to
I like
implementing a
saying
federal ban on
fracking, but
on
that's
your
about
first day
it."
in office, and you said, "There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." So yes. So it changed in that campaign.
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And
Yeah,
to do
dude,
that,
Dana
we
Bash-
can do what we have accomplished thus far. The
she's
Inflation
not
Reduction
good.
Act, what we have done to invest
Right,
by my
she's not.
calculation over
She would never
probably $1 trillion
hardball this
over the
kind
next
of
10
shit
years,
if she was talking to
investing in
Trump,
a clean
right?
energy economy. What we've already done, creating
You know
over
what I mean?
300,000 new clean energy jobs, that tells me,
I mean,
from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact,
she's
Dana,
the one who
Dana,
delivered
excuse
that
me,
BS in the debate
I
about
cast the tie-breaking vote
after birth
that
abortions.
actually increased leases for fracking
Yeah.
as vice president.
Yeah,
so
there you
I'm very
go.
clear about where I stand.
There you
there some
go. Put Dana in her
Policy,
place. Let's
or
go.
Scientific data that you saw that you said, "Oh, okay, I get it now."
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration. As vice president, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
Northern part of Central America.
the northern
in
part
particular, yeah.
of Central America. That
Southern
deals with-
countries,
that
dude.
affects the southern border
Dana
of the
Bash
US.
is like,
During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border
I don't know
crossings.
why she's even
Why did
gets to do
the
these
Biden-Harris
interviews.
administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced.
Cut in like half
since we began that
with
work.
her
But
work.
I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue
A huge
that is
bill.
very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a
A little
bill was
too
crafted,
conservative,
which
if
we
you ask me,
supported,
but
which I support.
whatevs.
And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border.
The
and
people
because
who
he
wrote the
believes
bill
that
voted
it would
against
not
their
have
own
helped him
bill
politically,
for Donnie.
he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
just one other question about something that you said in 2019.
Dude,
when
she
you first
spent a
ran.
lot of time
There was a
talking
debate, you
about
raised your hand
2019,
when
man.
asked whether
Right?
or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws. that have to be followed and enforced, that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings.
Dude, I'm
the
waiting for
only
Dana
person
Bash
in
to
this
ask her,
race
like, how
who
long have you been
actually
black?
served.
Every
Generally
question has been
speaking,
about
How
2019.
should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're
Dude,
saying
meanwhile,
now is
Trump
gonna be
just
your
lies
policy
with
moving forward?
impunity.
Dana, I think
Right, talks about
the
Hannibal
most
fucking Lecter,
important
bro.
and most significant aspect of
And they're
my
like,
policy
how dare
perspective
you
and
evolve your
decisions is My
policies?
values have not changed.
Yeah, you tell
You
them.
mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which
Yes,
we
it
should
is.
apply metrics that include holding ourselves to
Dude,
deadlines around time.
We've seen it here
We
in
did that
Portland.
with the Inflation Reduction Act.
Bigly.
We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should
That's
meet
also very
certain
important,
standards
that
for
the US
reduction of
be a
greenhouse
leader
gas emissions, as an example.
in
That
climate
value has
policy.
not changed.
We set the
My
tone.
value around what we need to do to secure our border. That value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of
Yeah.
California.
She's dealt with the border.
Transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. I believe it is important to build consensus, and it is important to find a common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you
That's
appoint
right.
a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
First off, the questions, even the tenor of that opening, every single question dealt with, well, in 2019, you said this. In 2019, you said that, which I thought was a little bit toxic. Actually, the way they came out of the gate with that. There was a definite prevailing attitude from the start of this of, you've flip-flop and changed a whole bunch of positions. Why should we trust you? Which is really weird, considering that the guy she's opposing is a rapist and a convicted felon. Not only do they not do that to Trump, but if we go back to the debate, the Biden-Trump debate, where Trump lied about states performing abortions on already born live babies. Not only did they not do anything and let him lie with impunity, but Dana Bash, when she asked Joe Biden the next question, she actually asked Joe Biden a question saying, well, you know, there are like 7 states that have no restrictions on abortion. She actually fed the Trump lie. So the fact that she pulls that kind of crap in a Trumpian realm, but with Kamala Harris, it's you're under the microscope now for everything you said back in 2019. When Trump, nothing he says has come to fruition. He's done nothing. All right, here we go.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face.
Oh, that's crazy.
But what I want to ask you about
She's never met him
is what
face
he
to
said
face.
Last month, he suggested
That's
that
wild.
you happened to turn black recently for political purposes.
Look at her.
Questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it.
That's it. Good for her.
Let's talk about some foreign policy.
0 seconds
issues
on that
would
shit.
be on your plate if you become commander.
I can't believe she asked that
President
question.
Biden has, Governor Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask
Let's go.
you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you
great.
have never deployed.
Now they're going to
actually
be like,
in
oh, Governor
a war
Walz,
zone. A
let's talk
campaign
about
official
something you
said
said
that you
15
misspoke.
years ago.
Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform. of this country.
24 years.
Equally proud of my service in a
And
public
they're
school
asking
classroom,
him about
whether it's
something he
Congress
said
or the
15 years
governor.
ago.
My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war, did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member.
Here's the deal.
In any way. I never have.
Just so you
and I
know,
never will.
is when the other guy's a compulsive liar, I don't want to hear any nitpicking about
however many days not
weapons of
either of your
war.
bingo
You know what
cards,
I'm saying?
especially yours.
He hasn't inflated
You
his
had to
service
clarify,
record. He served 24
that
years,
said
bro.
that you and your wife
Right? Donald Trump made
used
up
IVF,
bone
but it turned
spurs.
out you used a different kind of fertility.
It's all
in order to do
bullshit.
that.
The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
So crazy, bro. It's pretty wild how the interview is real sort of persnickety about things that they previously said. It's crazy because I've never seen Trump get called out on his shit, bro. Like, they don't do that at all. It's sort of redonkulous. We've heard so much of the press clamoring for Kamala Harris to get up there, do an interview, show the substance, answer the questions. But like, the questions aren't even about the policy. The questions are, what did you say 10 years ago? Which is kind of an insinuation that like you're a liar. They're insinuating that they're liars when their opponent is a fucking compulsive liar. There's databases of like the 50,000 lies that guy has said.
You were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now.
Dude,
and I'll tell
Biden
you,
is
it's one of the
still
greatest
fit,
honors
bro.
of my career. Truly.
Seriously, he's more fit than Donald Trump to be
He
president.
cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and
Clearly.
and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so,
Touché.
one, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I am so proud.
Dude,
to
again,
be
though,
running
there's Dana
with
Bash
Tim Walz
with the
for president of the
implication of
United
Joe
States
Biden
and
being
to
unfit for
bring
office.
America
Like,
what I believe.
again,
the American
she's
people
even
deserve, which is a
questioning
new
from
way
this tack
forward and turn
of
the page
that
on the last
right-wing
decade of what I
lens
believe
on
has
Kamala.
been,
that her and Tim
contrary
Walz
to
aren't
where
truthful,
the spirit of our
and
country really lies.
But the
And
last decade, of course, the last 3.5
Joe
years
is
has been
incapable
part
and
of
they
your
hit it,
administration.
I'm
right?
talking about an era
It's all
that
nonsense.
started about a decade ago.
Yeah,
Where
started
there
with
is some
Trump.
suggestion, warped, I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most
Good
Americans
point.
are,
Where you lift up.
which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up.
Yeah.
That's what's at stake.
Well
as
fucking
any other
said,
detail
bro.
that
Right
we could
there.
discuss in
That
this
was
election.
beautiful.
Because we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
We were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
He was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you.
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him.
That's an amazing answer right there. You notice that? That was huge right there.
History is going to show a number of
first
things
thought
about
was
Joe
about
Biden's
him.
presidency.
That's really
I
the
think history
difference
is going to show
between
that
Kamala
in
Harris
so
and
many
Donald
ways
Trump.
it's
More than
transformative.
anything, is
Be
her
it on
first thought. It's about
what we
the
have
other
accomplished
person, not just her own needs.
Finally,
That photo,
watching
you
you
seen that
accept
photo? It's
the
beautiful.
nomination.
It's like
You didn't explicitly talk
representation
about gender
matters,
or
man.
race in
Look
your
at her.
speech, but it
Look
obviously
at how,
means a lot
like,
to a lot of people.
when she's thinking about that photo of that little girl, seeing her and the impact that her up there being a serious candidate for president, what it means for those young girls of color around the country who now know what they're capable of too. And that representation. But when Dana's talking to her about it, like, she's taking it in. She's not just a transactional sociopath who's concerned about winning and having power and this, that, and the other. But she's capable of taking in the real human impact of her existence on the world. And this is something that Trump fails at greatly. He does. He's a failure at this because he walks around dismissing his impact while hurting a lot of people, where they go to Arlington National Cemetery and they push employees around while they're breaking federal laws. And then they make up shit about them, about the woman having a mental health crisis. And then the woman won't file charges because she's concerned about retribution, because they go around hurting people and they don't care. And then Trump gets questioned about it and he's like, oh, I don't know. I have so many people working for me. I don't know what goes on. He just absolves himself of responsibility because he doesn't take anything in. He's a selfish, self-centered, narcissistic piece of Nepo baby trash. He is not capable of even taking in like the harm he's caused with some of his policies. The women that are bleeding out in restrooms, in medical centers around the country because of his draconian bullshit about abortion, right? The 12-year-old girl who's forced to deliver a baby. Children shouldn't be delivering babies, especially not when they're... But he's just immune, oblivious to all that, to the real world impact. And I am tired of having leaders in this country that are detached from the consequences of their leadership, because that's really important. Nobody's going to be perfect, and people are going to make mistakes. And sometimes you can be well-intentioned and people get hurt. But having the ability to take in the effect you're having on the people around you and the effect your policies are having on the people around you, to be able to take that in and then refocus your energy and grow and change and admit when you're wrong and evolve is just really important. I'm sick of this leadership style of this aloof, sort of like bastardized human being that just walks around like a bull in a china shop. We don't need any more of that. There's enough pain and anguish in this world. We need leaders that can actually take that shit in and bring us all together and be part of the healing.
Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind.
Dude, Tim Walz has the best eyebrows. I don't care what anybody says.
Standout moments that were perhaps unexpected during the convention. You mentioned one of them, Governor. A moment that you shared.
Gus.
The world
Dude,
shared
Gus is a
with your
pimp,
son,
bro.
Gus.
He
You
is.
were speaking. The camera caught him.
Look at him. He was so fucking
incredibly
proud,
of you,
dude.
So emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah,
Dude.
I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that. I'm grateful for so many reasons to be on this ticket, but that moment,
Dude,
to understand
Gus.
what was really important.
Dude, I'm tearing
to
up
have my
right now
son,
just watching
feel a
Gus.
sense of pride in me,
Bro,
that I was trying
you know
to
what
do
I'm
the
saying?
right thing, and
Like,
it was, you try and
real
protect your
shit.
kids, it brings notoriety
shit,
and things,
dude.
but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Hope. I'm proud of Gwen. She's a wonderful mother, and these are great kids. And I think the one thing is, talking about the era we're in, is our politics can be better. It can be different. We can we can show some of these things, and we can have families involved in this. And I hope that there was I hope people felt that out there, and I hope they hug their kids a little tighter, because you just never know.
Yeah.
Life can be kind of hard.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination.
Powerful
you didn't
shit,
explicitly
bro.
talk about gender.
Look at
or
her.
race in your speech, but it obviously
She
means
knows.
a lot to a lot of people.
She
and
knows what that means.
Viral
You know what
picture
I'm
really
saying?
says it.
She does.
What does it mean to you?
You know, I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment, for all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was deeply touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and
It's just so powerful.
and
Seeing
then
that
I'm in the
photograph just makes me cry,
front of the
dude.
photograph.
It
obviously
does.
Speaking.
It f***s me up. Like,
It's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot. She listened to everything, and she listens to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for
very
your time.
humbling.
Appreciate it.
You know?
for having
Thank
us.
you,
It's
Donna. Thank
true. But it's like, dude,
This
that
was Vice President Harris's first real
that kind of
unscripted setting where voters could
representation
see and hear
is
her
like
explain some of her
so
policy
powerful,
positions
man,
now and how
and
they
so
differ from
overdue.
before she became vice president, and why. And this was the first we
Dude,
heard those details.
that
about an
picture and
extraordinary
Gus,
phone
that
call
shit
from
me up.
dropping out of
I'm
the
like,
race and endorsing his vice president, something that will
crying,
certainly
dude.
go
I'm
down
not crying.
in
You're
history.
crying. So yeah, dude, that interview, it's weird. There's been a lot of pressure applied about the press, and she needs to do interviews and she needs to show up. And here's what I took in whole from that. I thought, one, I felt like she was very human throughout that interview. She was very human, but she also didn't seem weak or unpresidential at all. She felt very human, very connected, which I liked. And the same with Tim Walz. They don't have this air of aloofness. They're not walking around thinking like, oh, we can talk to you normal people. They are normal people, in addition to being, you know, leaders and lawyers and governors, et cetera, et cetera. So I did like the fact that she had that human aspect. I did not like the tenor of the questions, because the questions really seemed to be coming from a right-wing lens of your liars. The right wing has called you out on this, the way you represented your military service. You don't like fracking. You know what I mean? That to me was a little bit bothersome. And the fact that she actually asked her to respond to Trump's insane question about her turning black, which is so dumb. When you ask that question, if an insane racist makes up some shit about a black woman turning black, and then your response is to take their insane racist shit and then present that as a serious question in a national interview, you're actually lending a little credence to the insane racist shit, instead of simply saving that for a Trump interview and being like, how is it you can be so ridiculous as to say insanely racist things like that, or compare yourself to Abe Lincoln? Why are you acting like a crazy person? Those questions should be asked to Trump.